The turbulence was nothing, but the wine, that was a different story. I swirled my glass of overpriced airplane Cabernet, my gaze fixed on the in-flight screen, almost willing the Keynote presentation slides to appear from within the Sudoku puzzles. 20 years I'd spent in this industry, battling through male-dominated boardrooms and the endless purgatory of PowerPoint. Finally, my name was etched onto that banner. Keynote speaker, Global Tech Front Conference, New York City. 4,000 people in the room, tens of thousands streaming online. My voice, my data, my legacy. I should have been on top of the world, but a strange pinch, like a splinter behind my ribs, settled in my gut. Perhaps it was the hurried way the company handled the travel. We'll manage the hotel, the booth, the badges. My assistant had clipped out last Tuesday, almost cutting me off mid-email. Or maybe it was the unnerving quiet in my team's group chat. No pre-conference jokes, no frantic last-minute details about booth setup or speech timing. Just digital silence and a thumbs-up emoji from Bradley in HR that felt entirely rehearsed. And then there was the fact that I hadn't seen Mr. Visionary VP of Strategy, Mark Drayton, at the gate. He was slated to present on day 2, but as I boarded, clutching my economy upgrade and an overstuffed backpack, the seat beside me remained cold and empty. Still, I tried to embrace the moment. I watched the cabin lights dim, tracing the edge of my presentation printout as if it were a wedding speech. Then, I reached for the Wi-Fi. The connection flickered to life, like a dying firefly. I refreshed my inbox, expecting nothing, and there it was. Subject: effective immediately. Timestamp: 1 hour and 12 minutes after takeoff. Sender: James K. Rollins, VP of People and Culture. The body was cold, clinical, not a single bullet point of gratitude. Just 3 stark paragraphs explaining that my position was no longer aligned with the company's forward-looking strategy and that, effective immediately, my access credentials had been revoked. I blinked. My hand hovered, caught between sheer shock and burning fury. Then, it hit me. The timing. They fired me mid-air. I was literally soaring through the sky when they cut me loose. Deliberately. After takeoff. So I couldn't scream, couldn't call anyone, couldn't even reply. Cowardly. The stem of my wine glass cracked in my grip. Before this turns into a corporate bloodbath, if you've been listening this far and my voice hasn't made you want to switch off, perhaps consider tapping that subscribe button. 95% of you don't, and I'm trying to reach my first 10,000 subscribers without having to sell my soul to the algorithm gods. Help a storyteller out before the ex-CEO finds this and sues me for emotional damage. I spent the next hour spiraling, trapped in a pressurized tube with no one to yell at but a terrified flight attendant who offered me a cookie. My badge was still in my purse. My face was still plastered on the event posters. Keynote speaker. Not former employee. Not terminated mid-flight like a terrible twist in a Netflix drama. What was their endgame here? They knew I'd land in New York City. To what? Quietly disappear? Skip my own keynote? Oh, no, no, no. If they thought I'd simply fade away, they clearly hadn't read the notes section of my LinkedIn. The subject line glared at me like a middle finger in Times New Roman. Effective immediately. I scanned it twice before my brain fully registered the betrayal, as if my neurons resisted accepting it. 1 minute, I was envisioning a standing ovation, polite laughter, applause, congratulatory flutes of champagne. The next, it all shriveled to ash. I clicked the email. 3 paragraphs. No greeting, no thanks, no acknowledgement of my 2 decades building that company's reputation, one innovation at a time. Just a corporate guillotine. Due to recent organizational realignments, your role has been deemed redundant, effective immediately. My breath hitched, not from shock, but from the timestamp. Sent 1:12 p.m. EST. My flight took off at 12:07 p.m. They waited exactly 1 hour after Wheels Up. No coincidence, no mistake. Someone, most likely James, HR's hatchet man, Rollins, timed it down to the minute. They knew I wouldn't be reachable. No signal, no way to fight, no witness to the fallout. Just 36,000 feet of thin oxygen and thinner patience. The sheer cowardice churned my stomach. This wasn't just a firing. It was a surgical ghosting, executed mid-air, as if I were an inconvenient app they uninstalled in secret. I stared blankly at the seatback screen. Some animated chef offered tortellini. The woman next to me snored peacefully. A lavender neck pillow shaped like a llama nestled around her. Meanwhile, my entire career had just been flushed into the sky at cruising altitude. My hands trembled, not from sadness, but from rage. They thought they could erase me with a digital memo and a revoked keycard. No confrontation, no awkward hallway goodbye. Just, "We wish you well in your future endeavors," tossed into my inbox like expired coleslaw. And why? Because Mark Drayton, the VP of strategy with a jawline like a briefcase, had been itching to move me out since the merger. I'd seen the signs, the meetings I was accidentally excluded from, the sudden restructuring task force he assembled that somehow never involved me, the fact that he brought in that shiny new junior data visionary fresh out of an Ivy League bootlicker program. They wanted me out, but they didn't want a scene. So they threw me off the company bus mid-flight and prayed I'd just disappear. I blinked away the sting behind my eyes and reached into my laptop bag. My Keynote slides were still there, a full presentation built around a revolutionary case study that had tripled their quarterly conversions. I had planned to end my talk with a surprise reveal about the next-gen prototype I helped incubate, something no competitor had yet. I had planned to make them shine. Now I wanted to burn them from the inside out. My mind raced. Was my hotel room still reserved? Was my badge still valid? Would they try to cancel my keynote? Could they? I looked down at the conference app on my phone. There it was. Day 1, main stage, Nora Harrington, keynote, disruption with integrity. Oh, the irony. They hadn't canceled my slot. Not yet. Maybe they thought I wouldn't show. I exhaled slowly, a storm gathering behind my eyes. Cold, calculated, eerily calm. I wasn't out of the game. Not yet. They'd left my name on the banners. They left me with the mic. And they forgot what happens when you give the wrong woman a spotlight and a grudge. The wheels hit the tarmac with a thud that felt symbolic. I didn't clap like the tourist in row 32. I just stared straight ahead, white-knuckled and silent, letting the engines howl out what my throat couldn't. I exited the plane into the gray New York drizzle, dragging a carry-on that felt more like a coffin than luggage. My inbox had gone quiet. No follow-up, no apology, no call, not even an automated HR survey asking if I'd enjoyed my time at the company. At the arrivals hall, a line of drivers held name cards. My colleagues' names floated like confetti on crisp cardstock. Brent, Innovation Lead. Nina, Product Ops. No Nora. Fine. I opened the rideshare app. Still had my corporate card linked. Might as well drain it before they remembered to cut it off. At the hotel, the front desk smiled the way only 5-star clerks do. Too polite to scream, too dead inside to care. But her smile faded when she typed my name. "No reservation under this name," she said, her accent clipped and clean. "Are you with Spectraverse?" "I was," I said, smiling just wide enough to be terrifying. "I was their keynote speaker." "Still am, actually." The clerk blinked, tapped again. "We have a group block from Spectraverse, but you're not listed." I tapped my badge app. There it was. My photo, my title, Chief Innovation Officer, Spectraverse, Keynote Hall A, Thursday, 9 o'clock a.m. They hadn't even updated the damn system. They'd yanked me behind the scenes but forgot the public face. Classic corporate hubris. Cut the engine mid-flight and hope momentum does the rest. I booked my own room with my personal Amex, walked up alone. No branded welcome basket, no branded itinerary. Just stale air and the hum of neon from the minibar fridge. I could have stayed in, cried, gotten drunk, texted my sister something cryptic like, "Guess who got assassinated over airline beef stroganoff?" But instead, I changed into my backup dress, the crimson one that made me look like a problem HR couldn't solve, and went to the welcome mixer. It was wall-to-wall lanyards and hors d'oeuvres. Spectraverse logos gleamed from tote bags, name badges, and branded water bottles. I walked through the crowd like a ghost, my badge still listing me as Spectraverse Keynote. No one stopped me, no one acknowledged me, but I heard them. So, they're saying Mark's team is launching the new model without her? She got fired mid-flight? No way. Nah, I heard they're just restructuring. Dude, they took her off the email thread and added that intern. You don't restructure into unpaid labor. I drifted by the bar, pretending to scroll through my phone, every word slicing me like a paper cut. I spotted Nina and Brent from Product Ops, huddled with a glass of wine each. The same kind of fake casual body language people use when they know the funeral's not over, but they're already talking inheritance. She was tough, Nina was saying, but like, you knew the numbers were real. Brent nodded. Mark's all pitch, no build? She built. I turned away. My wine arrived. It tasted like betrayal, aged in a barrel of spreadsheet lies. You could feel the algorithm of my career rewriting in real time. But I wasn't out yet. My name was still on the Keynote slot. I still had the badge. I still had eyes. And tonight, I was going to listen. Every hallway whisper, every nervous chuckle, every misstep by the team that thought they'd erased me. They didn't just fire me, they freed me. And no one's more dangerous than the woman you thought you buried mid-flight, only to find her sipping Merlot by the ice sculpture, already writing your eulogy in her head. Nora. The voice cut through the white noise of clinking glasses and industry buzzwords like a scalpel through silk. Polished, familiar, dangerous. I turned, expecting another Spectraverse drone cautiously orbiting my fallout, but instead, I found Eva Lerman, black blazer, blood-red lipstick, and that kind of bone-deep confidence you only earn from winning 100 boardroom knife fights and losing just enough to stay sharp. Chief Strategy Officer at Stratus Sync, Spectraverse's oldest rival and biggest thorn. They'd been trying to poach me since 2018. I'd turned them down every time. Loyalty, pride, unfinished projects, take your pick. But now, as Eva sipped her espresso martini with the grace of a mob lawyer waiting for confession, I felt a shift in the air. The kind of shift that makes hurricanes change direction. I figured I'd find you here, Eva said, her voice low, conspiratorial. No booth, no entourage, no Mark, but a Keynote slot. Something tells me things at Spectraverse are spicy. I smirked. Spectraverse is many things. Flavorful isn't one of them. Eva's laugh was quiet, but genuine. She motioned toward the far exit. Walk with me. I followed, past the networking zones and name-tagged sharks, into the private access corridor behind the main ballroom. Industrial lights, concrete floor, silent except for the hum of refrigeration pipes and the click of Eva's heels. I won't insult you with questions you won't answer, Eva said. But let's just say it doesn't take a genius to read between the LinkedIn updates. You weren't just fired, you were erased. And from the looks of it, they did it fast and dirty. I said nothing. My silence was its own language now. Eva unlocked a door with a conference badge. Inside was a suite, plush, stocked, and eerily quiet. The kind of room reserved for VIPs and silent deals. A fresh wardrobe hung on a rolling rack. High-end blazers, power dresses, even shoes in my size. I always come prepared, Eva said, watching my reaction carefully. just in case someone I respect has a sudden change of circumstance. I raised an eyebrow. Always travel with emergency couture? Eva shrugged. You wouldn't believe how often good people get screwed by stupid men with cheap ideas. I exhaled. I didn't plan this. I know. I'm still the Keynote, for now. I looked at the wardrobe, at the mirror, at the opportunity. I hadn't wanted this. Not like this. Not with adrenaline still laced through my bloodstream, and the taste of betrayal still metallic on my tongue. But here it was. A fully furnished escape pod. A rival company offering a stage, a suit, and a new nameplate before my old one even hit the digital shredder. Eva wasn't just doing this out of kindness. She was playing chess. I was a bishop, maybe a queen, still on the board, and this was check. I don't need a job, I said, more to myself than to anyone. Good, Eva replied. This isn't about jobs. It's about narratives. Right now, they're writing yours for you. Ex-exec, burnout, collateral. But if you walk out tomorrow in our colors, give that keynote under our banner, suddenly, you're not fired. You're flipped. I swallowed. The idea thudded in my chest like an uninvited guest kicking down a door. I thought of my team, the ones who stayed quiet, the interns who avoided my eyes, the execs who pressed send from comfortable offices while I was still above the Atlantic. Then I looked at the rack of armor, because that's what it was. Silk-wrapped vengeance. You've got until 7 a.m., Eva said, sipping her drink again. After that, your name stays theirs, or becomes yours again somewhere else. Your call. I stood alone in the suite for a long while after Eva left, my mind ricocheting between silence and static, loyalty or liberation, disgrace or resurrection. Either way, the stage was still mine. But the story? That was up for grabs. By 2 a.m., my old biography had vanished from the conference site like it never existed. Eva's team moved with sniper precision, no leaks, no trail, no room for second thoughts. The new entry was lean and lethal. Nora Harrington, Executive Advisor, Stratus Sync Global. No mention of Spectraverse, no title inflation, just my name, my new banner, and my keynote slot still locked in for 9 o'clock a.m., Hall A. I stared at it on the tablet Eva left for me, one perfectly manicured brow arched in disbelief. The printer in the suite buzzed out came my new badge. Blue, silver, and clean. Stratus Sync lanyard, new QR code, different bar, same woman, new weapon. I ran my fingers along the edge of the badge like it was a blade. For a moment, the magnitude of it all pressed against my chest. In 24 hours, I'd gone from pride to purgatory to power. But this wasn't resurrection. Not yet. Resurrection was too soft, too spiritual. This was possession. I had clawed my own ghost back from the machine. Now I was going to haunt the bastards who thought they could kill me mid-flight. The presentation remote sat where I'd left it, next to a backup USB. My slides were still intact. My old case study, my charts, my data. I opened the file, stared at the title slide. Disruption with Integrity. What a joke. I deleted the title, typed a new one. How to burn a house without leaving smoke. Then I got to work. For 4 hours straight, I rewrote my entire presentation from the bones up. The core story stayed. It had to, or people would sniff the switch. But the framing, the context, it shifted like a tectonic plate under a fragile city. Gone were the polite buzzwords and corporate platitudes. In their place, data-laced daggers. I wove the story of a project gone right, my project, juxtaposed against a case study I anonymized so lightly anyone in the room from Spectraverse would know exactly who I meant. 2 innovation pipelines, one guided by research integrity and user-centric feedback, the other rushed by ego, starved of data, gutted by turnover. The first? Mine. The second? Mark Drayton's mess. I even embedded a time-lapse graph of cost overruns, color-coded to match the company's internal performance deck. Only a dozen people would recognize it, but those dozen would choke. Every transition was a scalpel. Every animation a twist of the blade. I didn't name names, didn't have to. I just whispered the story and let the audience connect the dots and the wounds. At 6:45 a.m., I saved the file, transferred it to the encrypted conference app, backed it up 3 different ways: USB, cloud, and burner drive. This wasn't just a speech anymore. It was a reconstruction, a forensic autopsy of everything Spectraverse had buried under a press release. I showered, put on the suit Eva picked. Sharp black, high collar, matte buttons. Power without pretense. No jewelry, just the new badge clipped clean over my left lapel, right above my heartbeat. When I stepped into the morning fog outside the suite, the city was still asleep. But Nora? Nora was awake, and I wasn't walking into Hall A to represent a company anymore. I was walking in to reclaim my narrative, to salt the earth where they tried to bury me. I drifted through day 1 of the conference like a ghost in heels, half visible, wholly dangerous. Stratus Sync's logo gleamed from my new lanyard, drawing just enough attention to spark curiosity, but not alarm. Most assumed I was consulting, maybe speaking on a side panel. After all, Nora Harrington was supposed to be in a corporate grave by now. Sidelined, replaced, buried in a soft press statement about strategic transitions. But I was very much alive and hunting. I moved from breakout sessions to coffee queues with practiced grace, every conversation a needle threaded carefully through half-truths and smiles. I didn't ask questions. I let the silence fill the gaps. People always talk when they think you already know. The intel trickled in. Apparently, my ex-boss, Mark, hadn't shown up yet. Word was he sent a junior strategist, Taylor something, as a fresh voice in innovation. A kid with a marketing degree, 2 years of real-world experience, and a LinkedIn profile that read like it was generated by ChatGPT in a rush. Worse, Taylor wasn't even credentialed to speak. No clearance, no formal slot, no Keynote slot swap. Just a vague announcement buried in a panel description. Emerging Voices in Product Design, featuring Taylor M., Spectraverse. I nearly laughed in the hallway. This was their plan? They didn't just fire me. They lit their own credibility on fire and handed the extinguisher to an intern. Later that afternoon, I watched from a corner of the lounge as Taylor paced in a too-tight suit, flipping through note cards and asking the AV tech if he could borrow a clicker. Sweat bloomed visibly through his collar. His badge was peeling at the corner. Judging by the panicked call he made while clutching a Red Bull like a rosary, he had no idea I was even in New York City. "Oh my God," he hissed into the phone. "No one told me she was still on the schedule. Her name's on the banners. What do I say if someone asks? What if she shows up?" I didn't flinch. I just took another sip of espresso and smiled into my cup. I'd already edited the deck twice, but now I had fuel. The slides buried in my keynote included anonymized but absolutely unmistakable metrics tied to Project Juno, the flagship initiative I'd built from the ground up. The same one Spectraverse fast-tracked after ousting me. The same one that now had delays, spiraling costs, and performance numbers lower than a basement crawl space. I anonymized the charts just enough to feign professionalism, but the color scheme, the font style, the axis labels, all lifted from Spectraverse's internal reporting templates. Anyone who'd ever worked with them would see it. Anyone watching from the industry would feel it. Anyone still employed there would sweat through their shirt before slide 5. By dusk, I had everything in place. The USB was loaded, the conference app was updated, my speaker access was greenlit, and the organizers, blissfully unaware of the corporate knife fight unfolding in real time, confirmed my AV tech rehearsal for 7:15 a.m. sharp. I didn't respond, just nodded. Let them be surprised. After all, this wasn't just a keynote anymore. It was a live autopsy on a stage with 4,000 witnesses and one terrified junior replacement sitting front row, waiting to see if the corpse on the table would twitch. I planned to make it scream. The ballroom buzzed with the kind of nervous energy you only get when two tectonic plates are about to collide. At 8:58 a.m., every velvet-draped chair in Hall A was filled. Laptops glowed, phones hovered over record buttons. Event staff zipped up and down the aisles, whispering into earpieces like a political summit was about to break out. And in the wings stood Nora, calm, still, icy, in a black blazer with a collar so sharp it could have sliced through a PR memo. My new badge, Stratus Sync Executive Advisor, clipped just high enough to catch the stage lights. One of the conference organizers, a visibly sweating man named Derek with the posture of a folding chair, nervously tapped my elbow. "So, there's been some confusion?" he said, his voice breaking like a nervous 8th grader. "Spectraverse said your slot might be reassigned. We never received official documentation and, your materials are still in the system and your name is still everywhere." I turned to him slowly. "Then what's the issue?" "No issue," Derek said immediately. "None at all. Just wanted to confirm you're still presenting." "I am. And you're now with Stratus?" I gave him a long look that said, "If you ask me to explain why, I will unmake you in front of this audience." Derek coughed. "Got it. We'll update the intro." Lights dimmed. The stage music, some synthy Euro corporate beat designed to make agile workflows sound sexy, faded into silence. The host took the stage. "Our next speaker is a returning favorite," she said, smiling as if nothing backstage was melting. She spent 2 decades redefining product integrity and disruptive design strategies, and she's here this year as executive advisor with Stratus Sync. Please welcome Nora Harrington. The room froze for half a second. No one clapped. Then a ripple of scattered applause, nervous, curious. But in the front row, my old colleagues froze. Mark wasn't there, still probably hiding in a hotel bathtub texting the board about optics. But Brent, Nina, and 2 other Spectraverse managers sat in stunned silence, lanyards clutched like rosary beads. I walked on stage like gravity didn't apply to me. The host handed me the clicker with the same look you'd give a bomb technician. Then she stepped back. "Lights up." I turned toward the audience, scanning it like a hawk in a suit. My voice, when it came, was low and steady, razor-wrapped velvet. "Let's talk," I said, pausing just long enough to let the tension stretch thin about what not to do with innovation. You could hear someone exhale too loudly in the 3rd row. A water bottle dropped with a hollow thud. "I want to start with the story," I continued, walking slowly across the stage about 2 identical projects, same budget, same user base, same market need. One led with transparency and data, the other with ego and assumption. Slide 1 clicked behind me. A chart. Clean, minimal, deadly. The first one succeeded. Slide 2. A nearly identical chart, except the failure line dropped off a cliff. Familiar font, familiar branding, familiar color palette. The second? Well, that's what happens when you fire your lead mid-air. The audience didn't laugh. They froze. Every Spectraverse employee in the crowd looked like they'd just been pantsed on live television. I let the silence hang like smoke. Then I smiled. "This is not a revenge speech," I said. "This is a cautionary tale." And just like that, the room was mine. Not Spectraverse's, not Stratus Sync's, not even the conference's. Mine. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't have to. Every word out of my mouth was dipped in truth and twisted just enough to make the crowd lean forward, unsure if they were watching a keynote or a corporate eulogy in real time. I moved through the presentation like a surgeon, not one performing a rescue, but an autopsy. No names, no logos, just cold, unflinching comparisons. Slide after slide dissected decision-making patterns that anyone familiar with Spectroverse could clock from a mile away. The gutting of R&D timelines in favor of rushed go-to-market rollouts. The replacement of senior engineers with outsourced cost savers. The infamous initiative where user feedback was swapped for a predictive sentiment model that predicted absolutely nothing except their public embarrassment 6 weeks later. Let's talk about accountability theater, I said, gesturing to a bullet point list. Cross-functional transparency meetings with no data shared. Fail-fast cultures used to excuse lazy product vetting. KPIs retrofitted to match outcomes after the fact. The audience let out a collective quiet damn. Some gasped, others smirked. One guy in the back muttered, "Holy hell," loud enough for his mic'd colleague to shush him on stream. By the time I reached the midway point, when innovation becomes theater, a dozen tweets were already going viral. Screens lit up. Code Vixen. Nora Harrington is setting fire to an NDA with every sentence, and I am living. Oxy 44. Who TF signed off on firing her? I want names. This is a TED Talk crossed with corporate arson. BP Magadan. Pretty sure I just watched a keynote and a murder trial at the same time. From the rear of the ballroom, a Spectroverse PR rep stood near the exit, whispering furiously into an earpiece. Another executive paced along the back wall, arms folded, face ghost pale. And just to the left of the tech booth, Mark Drayton himself. Late, flustered, and clearly stunned to see Nora alive, dressed and armed. He pulled out his phone and began texting like he was defusing a bomb. Unaware the explosion had already gone off 20 minutes ago and the room was just watching the dust settle. I paused before the final section. Let me close with a comparison, I said, my tone shifting to something softer, more surgical. Slide. Project Atlas. Launched Q2. Lead. Senior PM. Budget, $1.8 million. Time to market, 7 months. Outcome, exceeded KPIs by 140%. Next slide. Project Juno. Launched Q3. Lead, junior strategist. Budget, $3.2 million. Time to market, 4 months, rushed. Outcome, post-launch rollback at loss, $2.4 million. I turned to the audience, 2 teams, same tools, same goals. One respected the process, one rushed the optics. I looked up at the crowd. I led the first. Then I clicked once more. Both project graphs filled the screen side by side. One, a smooth arc of growth. The other, a jagged cliff of loss. I'll let you decide which company deserves your trust, I said, letting the silence flood back in. Mic still clipped, clicker in hand, heartbeat steady. I stepped back, nodded once, and left the stage to thunderous, confused, scandalized applause. Half standing ovation, half stunned paralysis. It was done. But outside that hall, the implosion was just beginning. The hallway outside Hall A was chaos. Soft-shoed, camera-lensed, credential-dangling chaos. I didn't rush. I walked like a verdict, the kind that had already been read aloud and printed in the morning paper. Flashes caught my jawline. Phones rose like periscopes. I didn't stop for the questions. I didn't need to. The speech was the statement. Everything else was noise, but one voice cut through it. Nora! I turned slowly. The crowd parted like breath around a blade. There he was, Grant Ellison, CEO of Spectroverse. Blue suit, tired eyes, tie too tight. He looked like a man who'd spent the last 40 minutes watching his company's stock price twitch and bleed in real time. I'd like a word, he said through his teeth, trying to sound calm, but his tone had the edge of a man shouting in a fire while pretending to give a TED Talk on leadership. I raised an eyebrow. You mean in private? Or in front of the New York Tech Herald, Digital Pulse, and, oh look, Wired's here too? A dozen press badges turned toward him like vultures sniffing meat. Grant froze, blinked, then cleared his throat. "Your actions today were reckless. We could pursue legal." "By all means," I said, already turning. "You'll be suing me for using anonymized, publicly accessible performance metrics?" "Go ahead. Discovery will be fascinating." He reached for words. None came. What did come was a swarm. Cameras. Mics. "Miss Harrington, do you believe Spectraverse knowingly misled investors? Were you silenced? Is Stratus Sync planning to file an ethics complaint?" Grant backed away. The flashbulbs hunted him now, not me. I didn't flinch. I kept walking. Back inside the lounge, Nina from Product Ops waited by the espresso machine. Badge removed, eyes hollow. "Hey," she said quietly. "I'm done. Just so you know. Sent my resignation an hour ago." "You were right." I nodded. So was the data. By noon, I'd heard from 5 others, engineers, designers, even 2 account managers, defecting, whispering, jumping ship like rats who realized the iceberg was above them now, not below it. It wasn't just employees. Clients approached too, quietly, eagerly. One even handed Eva a note during a panel with the words, "We're ready when you are." Back in the suite, I finally peeled off the blazer and sat down. No champagne, no victory selfie. Just silence. A clean kind. The kind you only get when the fight is done and the blood's already dried on the floor. I didn't just survive the ambush. I hijacked it. They fired me in the sky. I answered on stage. And now? Now the board was flipped. The game rewritten. And Nora Harrington wasn't playing pieces anymore. I was the rule book. I leaned back in the chair, cracked my neck once, and smiled without teeth. Not joy, not smugness, vindication. Cold, clean, and earned. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories. Lesson and message. This story teaches us that even in the face of betrayal and injustice, our integrity and expertise are our most powerful assets. Nora's experience shows that true power isn't granted by a company, but earned through dedication and a commitment to truth. It's a reminder that when we are pushed down, we have the strength to rise up and reclaim our narrative, turning adversity into a platform for positive change and accountability.